Hi, this is Tutor Phil, and in this video we're going to learn how to write a historical essay, or an essay for a history class. This is a video on how to structure a historical essay. This is not a video about writing the opening paragraph. Well, writing the opening paragraph, which is essentially the thesis statement, is very important, and I'm going to post links to other videos and articles below the video, so make sure to go and check them out. In this video, you will learn 3 ways to structure an essay on a historical topic, and you will learn how to combine these 3 ways to make the writing process easy and fun. Now, the things you will learn will allow you to, number 1, organize your thoughts, which is very important. It will help you get ideas out of your head quickly, and you'll be able to write a well-organized essay without getting stuck. So there are 3 ways, essentially 3 main ways to structure a historical essay. Number 1, chronologically, which means in terms of time. Number 2, thematically, which means in terms of theme. And comparatively, which means that you will be comparing things. Now, before we dive into structuring our essay, let's pick our theme. Now, our theme must have a subject. Okay, so essentially, when you're writing an essay, you're writing an essay about something. Now, that something is your subject. Now, you're going to need a verb, which means what are you saying about the subject? In addition to the subject and the verb, you need the setting, which is essentially the when and where of your historical essay. So let's pick our subject, which will be the antagonism between the US and the UK. Let's pick our verb, which is going to be escalated, which means the antagonism between the US and the UK did what? It escalated between World War I and World War II, which is the setting. Now, why in the quest for petroleum? That's the context, meaning the setting. The context is part of the setting. Okay, so we picked our theme. The subject of our essay is the antagonism between the US and the UK in the competition for Middle Eastern oil. And we're now in the first way to structure your historical essay, which is the chronological structure. Okay, chronological structure in terms of time. All right, so this is our chronological structure, and we're going to have 3 main sections in our paper. As you can see, section 1 is about the antagonism during World War I. Section 2 is the antagonism in the interwar period, meaning in the period between World War I and World War II. And section 3 is about the antagonism during World War II. So what makes it a chronological structure? In section 1, we're talking about the period between 1914 and 1918. In the next section, we're talking about the period between 1918 and 1941, between the wars. And the final section is about the antagonism between these 2 countries between 1941 and 1945. This makes it a chronological structure. In other words, in this essay, you're going perfectly chronologically from 1914 to 1945. This makes it a chronological structure. And please note that we still have 3 main sections. It's not just one chronological line that you're driving through your essay. Essentially, yes, you are driving one chronological line, but you still have 3 main sections, which means that we use the power of 3. You have 3 main sections: World War I, interwar period, and World War II. Very important. So next is the thematic structure. Okay, and we're going to organize our essay by theme, not in terms of time. Let's see how this will work. Section 1 is going to be about the need for oil. The need for oil. Section 2 is going to be about the scarcity of oil. And section 3 is going to be about the quest for oil. Now, as you can see, this has nothing to do with time necessarily. Now, you may still organize your content in terms of time within each section, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. But please know that this is not necessarily a chronological structure. For example, in section 1, you can answer the question why the need for oil began to rise. Now, when you talk about why it began to rise, you're simply describing 1, 2, 3 or more reasons why the need for oil began to rise, and that does not necessarily have to be organized chronologically. You see that? So it doesn't have anything to do with time necessarily, unless you choose to do it in terms of time. In section 2, you're going to answer the question why the scarcity of oil occurred. Again, you answer the question why, not when. Now, the question why implies that you're going to have 1 or more reasons, which again implies that this is not chronological necessarily. In section 3, you could discuss the quest for oil in terms of the level of intensity. So the level of intensity could be the highest, let's say, during World War II. So you could even start with World War II because of the level of intensity. Again, you're not going chronologically, but you're going in terms of the level of intensity. If it was the highest during World War II, you could even start with World War II. Again, it's not going to be chronological. Now, please note one very important detail here. Please note that the need, the scarcity, and the quest for oil are three very distinct subjects. They're very distinct ideas. They're very different from one another. The need is very different from scarcity, and the scarcity is different from quest. And this is very important because, again, you have three main sections that are very different from one another. And the thematic structure allows you to do that very effectively. Next, comparative structure. How will this work? Well, in section 1, you could talk about the US in terms of the Middle East. And in section 2, you're going to talk about the UK in terms of the Middle East. So it's the US again versus the UK. You're comparing the relationship between the US and the Middle East with the relationship between the UK and the Middle East in terms of the antagonism. Now, this is how you explore the antagonism between the US and the UK. Now, this is not the most efficient way to do a comparative structure. So watch the video till the end. At the end of the video, I will going to show you the best way to use the comparative structure. Okay, so please make sure you watch till the end. Okay, so these were the ways to identify the main sections. Now let's see how we can combine them to get a deeper structure. Let's see. So let's go back to our chronological structure. And we already have it here, right? Again, the subject is again the antagonism, and the main three sections are during World War I, in the interwar period, and during World War II. Okay, again, it's chronological. Now you can subdivide each section thematically. So you're going to have a thematic structure within each section of your chronological structure. Let's see how this will work. Let's go back quickly to our thematic structure just to see what it looks like again. We have three sections: the need for oil, the scarcity of oil, and the quest for oil. Now, you can use the structure within each main section of your paper. Let's see how this will work out. So we're back to our chronological structure. The antagonism is our subject. Again, we have three main sections: World War I, interwar period, World War II. And now within the first section, we're going to have three subsections: the need for oil, the scarcity of oil, and the quest for oil. You see, so we're using the thematic structure within each main section of our chronological structure. See how this works? And we're simply going to repeat the process in every section. In section 2, we're going to talk about the need for oil, the scarcity, and the quest in the interwar period. And we're going to do exactly the same in section 3 during World War II. Now, in our thematic structure, what can we do in our thematic structure? Now, within your thematic structure, you can organize content within main sections chronologically. And let's see how that will work out. In section 1, when you talk about the need for oil, you're going to talk about the need for oil during World War I, during the interwar period, and during World War II. You see how this works? And you can do the same thing in section 2, and you can do the same thing again in section 3. Just repeat the process. Next, in our comparative structure, what can we do? Now, you can organize content within main sections chronologically or thematically. In section 1, you can talk about chronologically during World War I, interwar, and World War II. You can do the same thing in the second section. And again, you can use the thematic structure within your comparative structure and do the need for oil, the scarcity of oil, and the quest for oil in section 1 in terms of the US and Middle East. And you can do the same thing for the second section, for the UK and the Middle East. All right. Now, I'm going to show you the best way to use the comparative structure. Now, what do we have here? We have here our chronological structure. Now, within each section of the chronological structure, you can have a comparative structure, just like this. So, you're going to talk about the US versus the UK in section 1. You're simply going to compare the US with the UK in terms of whatever, the scarcity, the need for oil, and so on. And you can do the same thing in the interwar period and the same thing during World War II. Make sense? Now let's take a look at our thematic structure. Now, this is our thematic structure, and this is how we're going to use the comparative structure within our thematic structure. Again, we're going to compare the US versus the UK in section 1, US versus UK in section 2, and US versus UK in section 3. I hope this is clear, because remember, the most important thing in writing your essays is clarity. Clarity, clarity, clarity is the most important thing, and this is exactly how you get it. And this is exactly how you give it to your professors and your teachers. Okay, I hope this was helpful. And again, you'll find links to related videos and articles below the video. Please check them out, especially videos and articles about how to write a thesis statement and an opening paragraph. Okay, I realize there's a lot going on in this video, so I want you to ask more questions. Okay, I'm going to answer your questions in the comments, and I also might make additional videos based on your questions, so please make sure to ask questions. Okay, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.